We are in the book of Ecclesiastes, and we're planning to walk through chapter 6. It happens to be one of the shortest chapters of the book, but alas, that will not mean that we will be any shorter this morning, because there is much in it. But it is an interesting little book. I don't know if you've enjoyed this book. I know some of you have some mixed feelings about even the book itself. I don't know if you even realize that there was some debate many hundreds of years ago if this book should even be included in the canon, just because of the spirit of the book. But you know, as we've been looking at it, we recognize that there is a key phrase that helps us to understand that and to recognize that this is looking at life from a human perspective. And we recognize very quickly the emptiness and the vanity and the vacuum that we will all live unless God is at the center of our lives. And that really is the idea of this book, to prod us, to point us, to show us, and to have us look into ourselves and get philosophical in a sense, which we don't generally do just on an everyday basis, and to really consider what really matters and what, at the end of the day, really counts. And this book is intended to push us and to press us into those lines of thinking. The subject of chapter 6 is really something that is near and dear to the heart of this culture. It really deals simply with materialism, consumerism. Let's just jump into the text with both feet. I'm going to read this together as we've already read it, but we'll read a little slower, and we'll just walk through this text and pull it apart and see what the teacher of Ecclesiastes says for us this morning. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. Thus far and no further. Just for a moment, let's slow down. There is an evil. You recognize that what he's talking about now is not just something that's a little bit bothersome. This is not a little pebble in your shoe. This is not something that's a little bit, annoying now and again. This is something that he's talking about that is, he uses the word an evil. That is to say, there is a moral degradation that has happened. There's a violation of the human spirit that's happened. There is something that is beyond us, that has happened to us, that he describes as an evil. And I have seen this evil, he says, under the sun. And there's our phrase again. And of course, you're tired of hearing me explain that phrase, but for those who are maybe just picking up our lessons with Ecclesiastes, I do need to help you to understand what that is. That is the key phrase that unlocks this book, that says that we're looking at life just from the end of our nose, as I've heard one preacher say. Anything that you can see with your hands, touch with your hands, see with your eyes, hear with your ears, taste with your mouth, whatever your five senses will allow, that is what we're talking about through this book. We're ignoring the supernatural. We're ruling out any aspect of anything beyond us. Let's just look at life. Life, just life as it's lived, excluding anything above the sun. There is an evil that lies under the sun, that lies heavy on mankind. That's an interesting expression. I don't know what that puts in your mind, but I know as a smallish kind of person, I always enjoy when I meet people smaller than me who are full-grown adults. It makes me feel pretty good. But I have been in situations where I've been asked to help move people. I'm not always sure why they would ask me to help them move. I can pick up your flower vase as long as it's empty. I'll carry that out to the truck. Sometimes I have been in a situation, and perhaps you have not, where things are heavy. And I've actually can remember moments where you let down the box or a couch and you realize that the box or whatever you've got and someone was on the other side, they've left, and my hand is stuck. And I haven't got the body mass to now get that thing to budge, and I'm kind of, hello? That's what comes to my head when I hear this phrase. It lies heavy. This is something that we are underneath. This evil, we haven't even got there yet, but this is the way he's describing it. I've seen an evil, a wickedness that is only in life, that is just permeates all of our lives, and it lies heavy. It oppresses us. It is something we can't get out from under. It is something we can't move from, and it lies on all of mankind. Now, that doesn't mean to say that every single person will feel the same weight in the same way. But this is not, his idea here is what he's describing, is not just a one-off thing. This is not just now and again, you'll occasionally see this. This is pervasive. It may not have touched your life in the same way, but it's a generalism of humanity. I have seen an evil that is done under the sun in this life, and it is pervasive. It is oppressive. It lies heavy on us. There's no getting out from under it. There's nothing we can do about this. This is how life is. And what is it? Verse 2, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires, yet God does not give him power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. Now, I don't know if you can find yourself resonating with those words, but I know that makes perfect sense to me. A man to whom God has given wealth, that is, obviously, possessions within a bank, and then possessions, so stuff you can have because of your wealth, and then a place of honor and position because of who you are. But there's something in the human spirit. By the way, let me just say, and you'll notice that the text says God gives these things. So you have any of this, any measure of a bank account or any measure of possessions or any measure of honor within society, just be aware that God gives these things to the human race. There's nothing wrong with wealth or riches or possessions in and of themselves. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Don't ever hear me saying that. I'm not preaching against that in itself as if that itself is wickedness. We have these things, but what happens? God does not allow our hearts to be satisfied by these things. These things in and of themselves never bring a satisfaction to the human spirit. And it is a heaviness that lays on the heart of man, that everybody has this bent thing in their spirit where somehow something inside them makes them believe this next trip to the mall is really going to bring me joy. And it only lasts for just long enough, and then there's something that happens. There's a vexation about it. There's a heaviness that lies on us. We lack nothing of all that our hearts desire, but God does not give us the power to actually fully enjoy them. Now, you know that this is how our culture thrives and thinks and lives. You know this because we live in this culture. We live in an affluent, consumeristic kind of mentality. And I'm not here to rebuke us all. I'm just saying that's what we're born into. And it is around us, and it is pervasive, and he jumps into this text, into this idea. Well, I don't know if you know this name. I'm going to introduce you to somebody this morning that might not mean anything to you, but he's actually had an influence on your life. Edward Bernays, he lived to be 103 years old. He was a nephew of Sigmund Freud. And as he got to know his uncle through summer trips and summer holidays into Europe, he lived in Massachusetts in the United States. He began to pick up some of his uncle's philosophical, if you will, ideas about psychoanalysis. And he decided to apply these ideas to the human race. I'm trying to explain this without explaining who this man is, but this man has actually influenced you more than you have any foggy clue, and he did that intentionally without you even knowing this or anybody knowing this. He's a pioneer in the field of public relations, spin. He began and introduced to the mindset of the people the art of manipulating the public. No one had ever done this before. No one ever thought of this before. This man, from what I understand, fathered the very notion that if you want something to happen within a culture, you just need to get people to believe that whatever that thing is, that they need that thing. For example, there was a problem with a company, I forget what company, it doesn't even matter, but they were an aluminum company, and they had a very bad reputation in the eyes of the public because of what they were putting out into the streams and into various things. They came to him and they said, what should we do to change our image? He began to take surveys with doctors, began to work together finagle some little scheme, actually petition the government with these so-called surveys from the medical industry and change the way we drink water today, because now there is fluoride in our water, which is an offshoot of the aluminum production, which now the public believes aluminum is now a good thing. And he has completely reworked who we are and what we think based on what needed to happen. He manipulates the culture. Just another example. If you were to think of a breakfast, what does breakfast look like? What is breakfast to you? A true breakfast. If you were to go to a restaurant and order it, I can almost promise you, you are now picturing in your mind bacon and eggs. Did you know that Edward Bernays told you that that is what breakfast is supposed to be? Did you know that? It used to be that breakfast was coffee and toast, but the bacon industry came to him and said, we have a little problem that we're watching our sales go down. Most people would say to the bacon people, put it on sale and put a little advertisement around. He didn't do that. Instead, he didn't talk about a particular product. He went out and changed what everybody believes breakfast is supposed to be. And I'm not sure what all the schemes that went about in different variations, and eventually it came to be that that is exactly what we all think breakfast is because Edward Bernays has influenced us. And we live, and this is now, we've all been born and lived and raised. That's all we've ever known in this room. It's all we've ever known is that, and I'm not speaking against this, don't hear me wrong. I'm not trying to get political and trying to straighten it all out and change the world. I'm just giving you information to a point, I hope, so just stay with me. But this is all we've ever known, is the art of people telling us what we need and making us believe that we want that need. We have that need. And we've all been saturated by this in a consumer culture. And I'm not speaking against capitalism. I'm not trying to tell you that all that is evil and it's all wrong and whatever else. It's all good. Free society, all the rest. But understand this, that what is happening and what he recognized and realized what was going on is, and although he didn't know it in any physical or spiritual sense or any biblical sense, but he recognized that there was something in the heart of a person that longed for something deeper. They don't know what that thing is, so he would just tell them, it's bacon, that's what you need. And suddenly, we would somehow believe, either literally in our minds make those thoughts, or something in our spirits, we would respond. And now every single product that we are fed and given within our culture takes these very same lines, these very same things that Edward Bernays taught the world in regards to propaganda. And all advertisement follows the same line of thinking. It's all about giving you something that you think you need because they know something in the heart of man is looking for satisfaction. And so why not just tell you that my product is that thing that you're looking for? And we don't even realize within our brokenness that we're doing that. It's unconscious. And they want us to bypass our cognitive thinking and just go straight to the emotion and respond. I don't think there's probably anybody better than this in McDonald's. Again, I'm not slamming anybody. I'm not down on these people. But I know just as a parent, watching you take your kids in, and what do they need? A Happy Meal, because there's a little plastic piece of junk in there that you can hardly put together, and you're not sure what it is, and they're thrilled to get this thing. And you know that it only lasts until the meal is over, maybe a little bit of the car ride home, and then what? And then as soon as we get back there again, what happens? I need another one. Now, we see that on a juvenile level, and as parents, oh, that's only 4 cents, oh, whatever. But that's the same principle that our hearts, we're looking at them and seeing that's the human condition. There is something in us that intrinsically craves something deeper. And the teacher in Ecclesiastes is saying this is a heaviness that weighs on the heart of man and the human race, that we are looking and craving, and we're never able to be satisfied. We're never able to find that in things. I don't know if this takes you back. Do you remember when that was their phrase? You deserve a break today. Now you've got that tune in your head, don't you? If you were old enough to remember that. Right? Now you're singing the tune. You see those guys mopping the floor. The whole thing's going on. But what is the phrase here? You deserve, you don't even know me. And you're telling me that I deserve this? Well, that's really kind of you. I deserve that. I should go there because I deserve that. And bypass your thinking, just go straight to your emotion. That's the premise. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it is tapping in to what the human heart is hungering for, not in a physical sense. Remember this one? It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's. Whatever time, anytime, anytime. I think this might be when they started staying open late. Anything's a good time. What you want is what you get. That's probably because, they came assembled and they want you to know that you can fix it any way you want. But what you want is what you get. Ooh, who doesn't want that? I'm off my... Bypass your thinking, straight to your heart. I'm going to respond emotionally. I like that. This is my favorite, I think, from all time. There's a little McDonald's in everyone. That is because... Do you remember that one? That is because it never fully digests. I think that was probably the weakest. And that's when they came out, if I can even say this in public, this is when they came out with the McWrap. That's a mistake right there. Just say that quickly and ask yourself, who was thinking that that should be a food product? Okay, we'll leave that there. You remember this? I'm loving it. I think it's something I have to choose. I'm not trying to be against this. I'm not trying to put this down. I'm not trying to be some big negative wet blanket. I'm just trying to make a point. That this is all that we know in our culture. That this is pervasive and normal behavior that's always, and what is going on? It is because your heart, my heart, every human heart, they figured this out. They don't know why, but they know that you are looking for something. And Edward Bernays began to tap into this and play with this and discovered that and now it's just pervasive. It's just normal. So we're all being raised, being told and taught that this thing, this next carrot that's in front of you, this is going to do it for you. There's an evil that I have seen under the sun, lies heavy on mankind, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all he desires, yet God does not give him power to enjoy them. But a stranger enjoys them. What does that mean? Stranger enjoys them. Maybe this man died without ever, dealing with his wealth. It's been passed on, or somebody else sees what you have. They're strangers. Other people who aren't related to you sometimes take up what you have. This is a vanity. It's a grievous evil. It goes on. If a man fathers 100 children, lives many years. Now, first he's talking about physical things around you. Now he's talking about a wealth that comes from things that you can't manipulate the situation. You can't decide how many children you're going to have. You don't get to decide how many years you live. So this now, he's talking in the ancient Near East, this would have been seen as a great blessing. Maybe not to you and me, depending on who you are. But this was a great blessing in the ancient Near East. Someone who has many, many children. It's exaggerated. Nobody's lived 100 years and had 100 children. And it's just for the sake of illustration. If a man has 100 children and lives many years, so now he's wealthy beyond with all those things that you can't control. And his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied. Even these things don't bring lasting sustenance to his spirit. And he has no burial, probably because he has burned all his bridges, probably because he has no family left that even cares about him. All his 100 children have rejected him because he's such a crotchety old man. Whatever the case, I say, wow, this is dramatic. A stillborn child is better off than he. Wow, that does nothing but make you sit up and say, what? I mean, that's pretty harsh language to describe it that way, but that's the idea. A stillborn child, if you can put that in your head and understand that somebody who has all this, and it never brings them satisfaction. It never scratches that deep spiritual itch that they've got. It never brings them what they need. I say to you, someone who's born dead is better than that person. What? Yeah, because at least they never had that itch. At least they've born satisfied. They have the same end result, but at least they don't have to go through this process, this vain process of looking and looking and looking and looking, not even knowing that they're looking, not even realizing that they're looking, thinking somehow that they're satisfied in the midst of looking. For it comes in vanity, it goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun, nor known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. I'm always looking for the next thing, even though we should live 1,000 years twice over. Just for the sake of illustration, it's just exaggerated for the sake of making a point, yet enjoys no good. Do not all go to one place? Now remember, he's asking that question under the sun. He's not talking about eternal destiny. He's talking about human destiny. Do we not all go to the same place? Of course we all go to the same place. What is the same place we all go to? Cemetery, the burial in the ground. We all end up in the same, with the stillborn and the wealthy man who never finds enjoyment in it. There's always emptiness. We don't have to look far in our culture to find examples of this. We never believe them to be true. We somehow always think in ourselves that somehow wealth is always going to do it for us. I don't know if you know this man. His name is David Thompson. He is of the family that is, I think, the richest family in Canada. I don't know all the ins and outs of their wealth, but I know they own newspapers and all kinds of media and Bell and all kinds of stuff. And I think it's his grandfather, I forget, Roy Thompson Hall this is the Thompson family, okay? There was an article that was written. They have more wealth than you could put in, with all due respect, okay? I'm not trying to insult anybody, but you're paupers. These people, there's a story that one of the family, I think it was David, I'm not sure, he bought a $2-point-something million house in Rosedale, never moved into it, and never fixed it up, and it began to dilapidate, and it just came into ruins. And nobody even cared in the family. It was like, it's just $2 million. Okay. There was an article that was written in Maclean's a few years ago, and this was what was said in the article of the Canada's richest family. Theirs is a world where trust is elusive, motives are suspect, and opportunists abound. Relationships are mediated by lawyers. Litigation chisels away at personal relationships. Private lives are defined as exclusive property in confidentiality agreements. Art is purchased to sit in vaults, and paintings are held hostage in marital disputes. Homes are collected in clusters as if in a Monopoly game. Lawyers shred diaries. Nannies follow dress codes down to what colors are permitted in which season. A father sits in a room among divorce lawyers, refusing to look at his newborn just a few feet away. In a culture obsessed with money, the Thompsons illustrate that wealth is not reflexively synonymous with power and happiness. It also can summon a sense of helplessness, to quote David Thompson. Gothic doesn't even begin to describe it. That's an odd word. Gothic, I mean, that's a word that means, frightening or odd, mysterious, bizarre. Gothic doesn't even begin to describe it, says a man close to the family. You have no idea. I mean, there's living examples that we see that wealth, the people at the top, they're not satisfied with that thing. But that never stops the human condition. I'm not talking about you necessarily. I'm just talking about the human race. The human race from feeling that somehow I believe that, yes, it's true. I just need one more thing. Have you ever been in line at a convenience store and somebody scratches their thing and they won $50? What do they do with that $50? You don't even have to have me tell you, do you? Because if I'm not satisfied with $50, I would now like to buy $50 worth of lottery tickets, please. I mean, immediately. Have you not seen that? You don't go to many stores, I guess, and perhaps you're not buying your lottery tickets where you should. Let's not be doing that now, people. There's no point in being foolish with our finances in any way. So he goes on. There's this angst, this heaviness. There's a hunger. We don't enjoy them. Even if you have 100 children and live, it's still not the ticket. All toil is for a man's mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. Now that is a proverbial saying that you cannot argue with in any sense. Why do you work? To put bread on the table. Why do you put bread on the table? So you can eat it. Why do you eat it? So that 6 hours from now, I can do that all over again. That's all that ever happens. You put bread on the table to eat that bread, and you say, oh, I'm so full, I'll never eat another bite again. Yeah, right. It's only a matter of time. Then you say, oh, I'm so hungry, I could eat my arm. And then you go off again and you eat again. And it's the picture of the human condition. It's always using. We feed ourselves and we feel a little happy for a while. When you go to McDonald's, you don't feel full, you just feel different. I always like to say. But you feel that, that difference, and you're like, okay, this is okay. But it doesn't last. And then you need to do that again. That's just normal human behavior. There's nothing wrong with that. That's who we are. He uses that as an illustration. That in our spirits, we do the very same thing. We're never satisfied. We feel a little bit of satisfaction for a little while, but then there's something, that new car is not new anymore, and it's not good enough. There's something in us. What advantage has the wise man over the fool? There's an equality about this. Everybody's the same. What does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better, if only we could be like this. Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. If you could just look at something and be satisfied with looking, but we can't. Our hearts look at things, and then our little covetous hearts decide, I want that thing. Now, I'm not saying every day of our lives we do this pervasively, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the human race in general, okay? I'm talking about humanity under the sun, life under the sun. Better is the sight of the eyes and the wandering of the appetite. This came true to me, I think I realized when I caught myself looking at a Picasso painting. Our family decided to go to the art gallery in Toronto. Picasso was there, not literally. And one of my sons took art and seriously, and he was interested to see some of it. And I mean, hello. Is it okay if I say publicly, that is one ugly painting? Okay, I don't know what the deal is with Picasso, and I have a personal opinion about him as a person, and it's not a very high opinion, and I won't share it because it's irrelevant. And I think it's all reflexive in this kind of like, what are we looking at right now? But it's so funny, you look at this is what happened to me. Okay, I know you're different because you're not as wicked and deceitful and sinful as I am, I get that, okay? But I'm in the museum, looking at this one to the next, and that is bizarre, that is ugly. What are you doing with that? What is your problem, dude? Can't you paint? And then you start to realize this thing is priceless. And I'm like, I want one. That would be so cool. Why is it that, this guy died in my lifetime. Why didn't my family have the sense to run off and start buying them when they were worth $20 and whatever? And, we could have had a Picasso. Ugly, hideous, pathetic art. We could have been millionaires. And I'm looking at a piece of junk. And my heart is going, wow, I want that. That's really, Why? Because better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite, and your appetite wanders. By the way, if you ever wonder why Picasso paints the way he paints, have you ever seen Picasso? Pretty much, that explains it all. But there is something in the human heart that always chases after something else. Whatever has come to be has already been named. This is the most, if I can just say, one of the most challenging texts in all of our English Bible. Please do not ask me what this text means. I have read commentary after commentary. Even translating it into English has been a challenge. And I'm just going to tell you straight up, I'm going to leave verse 10, a little bit of 11 there for you. Because if we haven't figured this verse out after millennia of reading our Bibles, I'm not really comfortable to start getting too explanatory about it. It's a challenging text. Whatever has come to be has already been named. Okay? And it is known what man is, I assume, his covetous heart, his longing for something deeper, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he, which we assume to mean God, something beyond him. He's not able to dispute with God who put this covetous thing within his heart, I think. The text is odd. The more words, the more vanity, and what is the advantage to man? The more you talk about these things, the more you try to figure these things out, it remains a mystery. Why are our hearts bent this way? Under the sun, there is no explanation. There is no reason. We will always be looking for the next thing. Advertisers will always take advantage of our covetous hearts, always take advantage of our desire for something to please us. We will always be facing this heavy, evil oppression that is on mankind of a heart that longs and hungers to be satisfied and looks to things to do that. Who knows what is good for a man while he lives in the few days of his life? Who's ever going to find that thing? Who knows what's going to satisfy you? Is it going to be this? Who knows? Going to be that? Who knows? You're going to find it here? Who knows? Who knows? We're looking and looking because we've got no answers under the sun. We have no reason for finding peace and joy under the sun, without Christ, without God. He lives a few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow. It's lovely how he puts this juxtaposition together. You're clamoring after meaning and purpose and finding it in these things. And what is your life? A shadow. Just remind you, you're nothing. All this thing that you think means something, here's a juxtaposition. And when you live like that, oh, you're just passing by. You don't mean anything. And where does the shadow go in the morning? I don't know. It was there yesterday. Don't see it now. It's just a shadow, which passes like a shadow. Who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? Now, I don't need to tell you that we don't live just under the sun as Christians. And I hope you have taken that up as we've been looking at the book of Ecclesiastes and not gotten lost in the depression of living under the sun, because we have one who has given us meaning. I've been trying to say this. We have one who has satisfied the longings of the human condition. I hope we've picked up and understood that. We have come to know the one who is the answer to all of the longings of the human race. His name is Christ. He is the Jesus we celebrate. He is the one we worship. He is the one we have given our lives to, because as Christians, we have come to understand an entirely different worldview. In order for me to live, really live, I turn my back on everything that this world chases after. And I die to all that this world thinks is life. And when I ignore all of that, I actually find life. Because it's not even found under the sun. It's not found in any of our material things or in our lives or in any way I live. My life is entirely directed in a totally different direction. My focus is on one who gives life, and that life is found in my death to all that this world is. Now, we all struggle to live as dead people, but that is the call that Christ has put in every believer's heart, to walk away from the things of this world, to reject all the pleasures and the joys that this world gives, because people are chasing them, looking for that thing they're looking for. It's not here. It's found in Christ. Temporary pleasures can be found only until your belly gets empty, and then you start roaming around for your next meal. That is the human condition. But believers have been transformed. We are brand new people. We don't live like that. We don't need to grovel in this world looking for meaning. We don't need to worry about all these things and what is materialistic and what really matters. That is not who we are. That is why this book prods us to realize the emptiness. You've got to have something that is more than just what you can see and touch. And it is found in a person. It is found in a person, and his name is Christ. Does he satisfy you this morning? Is he all you really need? Do you know that in your soul? Do you rest on that in your spirit? Do you find yourself still chasing down that one more thing that's really I got to get to the theater this weekend. That movie's going to be the thing that really makes my heart sing. And it comes, it goes, it doesn't matter. Vanity. There's nothing that fills your heart with joy and peace and lasting sustenance except the person of Christ, and it is found in your death. Not your physical death, but you're recognizing the turning from all that this world is, taking up a cross and following him.